with the first pick on Cursed Hollow, we'll see maybe with that first pick they'll be able to get a little bit better team composition for them, maybe something they're more comfortable on. But I would not be surprised if that ETC just gets instantly banned. I don't think Buff Chen really knew how to deal with that hero effectively. Even with, Johanna, a tank that arguably has a lot of tools to take care of him, they weren't able to find those answers. And even on Cursed Hollow, where even if the mosh pit isn't an issue, the stage dive could potentially be a factor as well. But they're going to stick with the Ana ban. Maybe they know something that I don't. Maybe Minion Miners is a god tier Ana player. Or Ana's just a great hero, which she is. Matt goes mage this map. I guess we'll find out. Is he the one that played the Jaina last game or the Chromie? I think it was Chromie on their side. Lucio ban as well, and again, just choking these supports. As far as the support play goes last game, I don't think I saw anything particularly exciting out of the Rhaegar or out of the Alex Straza, to be honest. There was, I think, one really good Lifebinder in a team fight out of the Alex play, but other than that, it seemed like nothing super super out of the ordinary as far as the supports go. And yep, there's the ETC ban. They know it, we know it. That ETC was good. It was a problem for them, and the Dahaka gets banned as well. They don't want to deal with the global. Some respect bans. All right. So Alex Straza gets picked up, and then the Varian Abathur for... Wow. The Varian Abathur for Minion Miners. This is a strategy. Obviously a very good map for Abathur. It's large. He gets to body soak during the objective phases, which are long and require people to be off the map for long periods of time. But the Varian, I can't help but feel like it'll be a Twin Blades, obviously, with the Abathur. It should be relatively good into Alex Straza, being able to maybe deny some healing. Muradin and Sylvanas picked up. Sylvanas is a pretty interesting pick on this map. I mean, she does exactly what the objective already does, so I think that's a reason why a lot of people shy away from her on this map and prefer a damage dealer that has a little bit more utility. But the Muradin is definitely interesting considering so many meta tanks are still up. But it does make sense to the Varian if they are worried about the Twin Blades and the attack speed. That Jaina gets banned. And what will we see as a ban for Buff Chen? I gotta imagine if you see Varian Abathur is the 1-2, you're really worried about Varian just running over your backline, especially with this low CC composition with Alex Straza, Muradin, and Sylvanas. Stukov is going to be the ban, which seems very interesting. That's the second time they banned Stukov, so something tells me there's somebody over here who knows how to play that hero pretty well. Deckard, Kane, and Diablo are going to come, and you have to wonder where the damage is coming from in this composition. Maybe we'll see like an Illidan or something, but who knows? I am very excited to see this Abathur play. My team, Spooky Ghost, we've been playing Heroes Lounge for a while, and there's been a distinct lack of Abathur compositions in our divisions. So it's going to be exciting to see that hero get played again. So Thrall and Lunara on the side of Buff Chen. I don't think either of those heroes really have the means to deal with the Abathur added Varian. So we'll see how this will go. They do have a fair amount of poke, and there's a pretty heavy front line on the side of Minion Miners, so I can see where the sustain from Thrall and Lunara. Thrall should be able to hold his own in the lane against Varian for the first half of the game, and Li Ming is going to be where all the damage comes from, and man, this composition just seems so scary to me. The slow healing from Alex Straza into a Varian and a Li Ming for massive amounts of damage very quickly. I can't help but feel that Minion Miners won this draft. I don't think their composition is necessarily unbeatable, or, you know, it doesn't, it plays well into Curse Hollow with the Abathur, but I can't say that the team fights are going to go incredibly smoothly, but I don't think there's much for Buff Chen that is going to be able to deal with the Varian right now. Mind control to deal with the Varian is definitely going to be a problem, or a potential solution, I guess, not necessarily a problem. But I think the biggest problem is that there's just a lack of CC for Buff Chen in general. It's going to be real hard to protect their backline heroes.
Prepare yourself for battle.
But maybe their solution is just to, you know, have Lunara, Muradin, and Sylvanas just run past Diablo and Varian and just also murder the backline of Buff Chen. So we'll see how that goes. I think in the long run that won't pay off for them specifically because of the Abathur. And that should get them a little bit of an XP advantage throughout the course of this early game. But we'll see how it goes. And as we do see Mac on the mage playing the Li Ming, so whoever said that in chat definitely was correct. POV streaming as well, yeah, cool. Alright, so already we see Lunara going bottom lane, Varian going top lane, and neither team really wants to fight in the mid lane. Obviously Abathur composition doesn't want to, they want to get level 10 as quickly as possible. So we'll see here. So Varian, High King's Quest, definitely going to be a Twin Blades build, and Abathur with the Envenom Nests. Interesting, maybe trying to catch some rotations here. And Thrall is going to go up to contest the Varian in the top lane. Meanwhile, Lunara, dealing with the Abathur lane. Li Ming's going to come down and try and do her best to make sure that Abathur is nice and comfortable down there. And honestly, I do think that one of the ways that Buff Chen can take advantage of this game is by being very aggressive in the early game, especially over these tributes. Varian is going down to start the siege camp. He sees that the first tribute is spawning in the bottom. Abathur can come back up to soak top. And this is a really good setup for Minion miners. Shadow Dagger from Sylvanas, Unfurling Shadows, is going to do as much as she can to try and take down that big health pool from Diablo and Varian. Should be able to, I think that dot damage goes through the Varian deflect, so that will be nice. But maybe should have gone with the percent health damage. I'm not quite sure what's the better talent in this situation. I'm not a Sylvanas player. But Buff Chen definitely doing a pretty good job making sure they take their siege as well. And they are going to hit level 4 first. But definitely the Bruiser camp being taken for Minion miners is interesting. I do kind of like it. I mean, Varian and Abathur, some of the weakest early game heroes in the game. Varian pre-4 is, I think, almost the worst hero in the game. And so they're just gonna try and get as much XP as they can, try and get their Abathur up. Adrenal Overload gets the attack speed, so I think this Varian is going to be what this draft is going to come down to. Can Murdarin on the Varian make some plays happen? And it looks like they are going to be contesting this first objective. I'm actually kind of surprised by this. I'm honestly more surprised by the fact that Buff Chen isn't maybe being a little bit more aggressive here. They do have Thrall pretty much dead in the top lane, but yeah, this is just gonna go straight to Minion miners, and honestly, this is not a good look when you're playing against the Abathur composition. If you're giving up an objective in the early game, something is going wrong. Just thinking about how the XP is being played out, I am very surprised that this game is going the way it is right now in the early game. They did clear the Bruiser camps that were meeting in the middle, Buff Chen did, and so they did get a little bit of damage on this front wall, but ultimately it's not going to be a hell of a lot. Minion taking some damage on the bot lane, but she should be okay. Level 7 is going to be here for both teams for this tribute. Lunar is going to come up, Abathur will catch that bottom soak, and this is going to be the fight that I really want to see Buff Chen take. They have Thrall in the top lane. They can take this 5v5 right now. He's going to walk into this bush, maybe get caught up by Varian. Varian will get snuffed out and is kind of off away from his team right now. He has the hat and he's on the Thrall. There was a stun from Murden. He does get locked down, taking a lot of damage right now, and he actually does go down, and that was a really, really well played fight from Buff Chen. That's exactly what I wanted to see. They popped the dragon, they said, hey, this is our tribute, you guys aren't getting it, and they actually are going to maybe get the Diablo, but it looks like they might be overextending right now. The leaping damage comes through, and the orb barely misses. Murden stays alive somehow. They need to walk away as soon as possible. Even though this was maybe a good fight for them, Abathur's still soaking the bot lane nice and comfortable. And even though that fight went in their favor, it's still not a good sign. I mean, once the Abathur hits level 10 and he actually gets to become a real hero, I think this game's going to become a lot more difficult for Buff Chen. Next tribute is being fight over. Neither team will have level 10. Diablo taps to make sure he's healthy. Whew! Murden gets out, just in time before that root locks him down. Alright, 15 stacks on the Shadow Dagger. Diablo almost at full souls. So let's see how this tribute fight plays out. Buff Chen does a very good job of making sure they get their siege camp pushing bottom. But Varian and Deckard are going to be soloing the boss on the bot lane, and I don't think Buff Chen has figured this out yet. They know that the tribute was uncontested, but they are not quite sure why, but they figure it out, and they're going to go start their own boss. The damage should be enough before Minion Miners can rotate over. So it looks like both teams are pretty content to trade bosses. They both have siege camps pushing in the bottom. The good thing for... this was a smart play for Minion Miners. Again, they're just delaying team fighting until they can get that Abathur online. And they are actually pushing a little bit harder into the bottom than Buff Chen will in the top lane. And level 10s are here for both teams. Nothing super out of the ordinary. Stay a while and listen. Wave of Force for Leeming. Lightning Breath for Diablo. And Sylvanas does take the mind control. It looks like maybe Varian is going a little bit, or Diablo going a little bit too deep, but he's going to be okay. Abathur does need to be careful though, and he's going to burrow to the bot lane, or mid lane it looks like. Both teams defending bosses, and the bottom fort goes down, and the top fort looks like it might live. Yeah, it's definitely going to live, it looks like. Or maybe Varian will rotate down for the tribute. Buff Chen has done a good job of getting on this as soon as possible, but Li Ming clone, or Deckard clone it looks like, comes out, maybe just to stall the tribute, wait for Varian to rotate down. Diablo has kind of found himself in a 1v3, but he has the Abathur hat and the Lightning Breath, and Varian is here in time. There's a really, really good Alexstrasza ult there to keep herself up, and Diablo loses a lot of health, and he will die. Did not have souls yet, so that will be a full death timer. And I can't help but feel like the Life Miner is what won that team fight. A lot of damage was focused onto that one target, and Varian will go down as well. That's 2 deaths and a curse. 3 deaths, actually. I'm not quite sure when Li Ming died. 3 deaths and a curse. So that's going to be really, really good for Buff Chen. They did exactly what they needed to do. They saw that the rotation was a little bit late from Varian in the top lane defending the boss, and they were aggressive when they needed to be. It looks like Minion Miners were maybe a little bit too greedy trying to hold on to that tribute. Maybe the better choice, given that slow rotation, would have been to let it go, but they are still okay. I don't think they'll lose a keep for this, but it will be a keep front wall. And Abathur should be able to keep them in the game. That's a really good mind control, and it is not going to be enough damage to lock down Murden, or lock down Varian. Instead, Murden falls for trying to get over aggressive, and that's really good defense from Minion Miners. So with the curse being over, both teams pretty even on XP. But Buff Chen's lanes are pushed up pretty hard. They're going to have a hard time soaking this last bit to 13, and I think Minion Miners are even going to get it before them. But they should both have it in time for the next team fight. Nothing super interesting out of the ordinary in regards to talents just yet. We do have the Skull Cracker from Murden, which seems a little bit strange. I think maybe the Executioner would have been a little bit better. Considering they do have a fair amount of lockdown on their team. Or at least slows. Bridger Camps will meet in the middle. And level 13 is here for both teams. And it looks like with the Sylvanas, they're going to push down this fort and just get that passive XP rolling in for Buff Chen. Rotate top lane, clear the siege camp, and the structure advantage is definitely here for Buff Chen, even though the XP looks pretty similar. They will have that passive XP from the 2 extra force that they have capped. And an ult onto Li Ming, and she will fall, maybe getting a little bit too greedy there. The Haymaker putting in a grand amount of work, and I actually didn't notice that Haymaker until right now. That is going to be something that actually will give the Varian a lot of trouble, which I didn't anticipate. It makes a little bit of sense. But I mean, the Murden, did fall in the bottom lane during that push, so they're definitely hurting with that lack of Avatar. Tribute on the bot lane. Looks like everyone is going to be there. Looks like all the ults are up, but Abathur's clone is down. I wonder if Buff Chen realizes this and they're going to try and get aggressive. It looks like they will. And with the clone being down, I think Minion Miners will just be content to back off. Abathur is brought to the top lane. And they will give up this tribute nice and quietly. Both teams just looking to soak for level 16. Oh, maybe a pick on the Murden. There is the Haymaker. Maybe actually taking him away from the rest of his team's damage, but he will fall anyway. Can't help but wonder why Varian was so far out. I think it looked like both teams were pretty content to give Buff Chen that tribute, so maybe Varian getting a little bit too comfortable in his Abathur hat. But the clone is here. They are going to be able to take a relatively decent fight. Murden is actually real low, and the Stay While and Listen doesn't really connect with anybody. The Diablo clone goes down, and the Diablo goes down. And it was a good engage. I can't help but feel like the Stay a While and Listen is what just destroyed it. It looked like maybe the Diablo charge pushed one person out of it. But the boss will be here. Murden gets flipped, but he's going to be alright. Varian is respawned and gets mind controlled and instantly gets... Oh, is he dead? Yeah, he will fall, thanks to the dots. And that is definitely not something to laugh at when you're playing against the Varian. Like, they do have a lot of dot damage with the Lunara and the Sylvanas. Even the Alexstrasza does apply a little bit. And with Sylvanas here and the really big boss and that staggered death from Varian, this is probably going to be enough to end the game. Bot still has a ton of health. Li Ming's going to struggle to pick up a regen globe to proc her power hungry. Diablo has respawned, having lost his souls, and he will probably fall to Lunara. Nope, he barely makes it out, but the core is so low. Boss is still very healthy, and that is going to be game 2 going to Buff Chen. That was definitely not what I expected. I think